Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we are going to be looking at 10 of the worst transfer windows in Premier League history. So it is, of course, transfer season, so I thought it would be fitting if we had a look at some of the worst transfer windows by some clubs in the Premier League. So what I mean by this is, of course, like in a summer or a January window, who they signed, and for whatever reason these guys did not work out. Maybe they spent a load of money, maybe they sold their best player, various reasons for these clubs. I've picked what I believe are the 10 worst of all time in Premier League history. They're not going to be in any order, but at the end of the video I'll probably say which one I think is the worst. There are some real stinkers in here, but I probably missed a couple, so let me know if I've missed any and what your club's worst transfer window is. So yeah, hope you guys do enjoy, and let's begin. So, starting off first with Chelsea 2017 summer transfer window. So Chelsea had just won the Premier League title under manager Antonio Conte, and fans may have expected the club to make significant signings to strengthen the squad. Well, it was quite the opposite. Firstly, key players of the title-winning side were let go of, including Diego Costa and Nemanja Matic. And their replacements, well, the less said about them the better. Matic's replacement was Timu Bakayoko, while Diego Costa's was Alvaro Morata. To round this off, the club spent $156 million on Morata, Bakayoko, Danny Drinkwater and Davide Zappacosta. Bakayoko and Drinkwater were let go for free transfers, while, to be fair, Chelsea got most of their money back from Morata, and Zappacosta, I mean, he was just a guy, like he did absolutely nothing for us. The only saving grace of this window was Antonio Rudiger joined, but even then we let him go on a free, so we basically made zero profit from this window and spent $156 million just to get worse, to be honest. Number 2, Man United 2019 summer window. Now this was just a mess in all aspects. Firstly, United had just come off the back of a shocking season where they sacked Jose Mourinho midway through and had Ole in charge now, which in itself was shocking. But anyway, the squad was in need of a major overhaul. What happened instead, well, was pretty comical looking back. Firstly, United's main target that summer, Jadon Sancho from Borussia Dortmund, they dragged that deal out throughout the whole summer and ultimately failed to sign their man. And then the club only signed 3 players that summer, despite a major overhaul being needed. But in all fairness, they did spend money. They spent $146 million on these 3 players, including a new world record fee. You're probably expecting these 3 players to then be world-class, great players, right? Well, not quite. The 3 players signed were Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Dan James, and the world's most expensive centre-back of all time, Harry Maguire, for a combined total of £146 million. So yeah, it's safe to say they spent their money on the wrong guys, as Wan-Bissaka's been okay, but besides that, none of them have been anywhere near a success. Number 3, Arsenal 2011 summer. Now, Arsenal have had many bad windows over the years, but this one probably tops it off. The first big issue of this window was the loss of key players. The transfer window was marked by the departure of several key players, including Cesc Fabregas, who joined Barcelona, and Sami Nasri and Gael Clichy, who moved to Man City. Losing such influential players weakened the team and left gaps that were not adequately filled. In fact, despite the significant funds generated from these sales, Arsenal failed to secure anybody of note to replace these players. They received 77 million from player sales and instead decided to buy Park Chu-young, Andre Santos, Yossi Benayoun, Gervinho, Joel Campbell and Carl Jenkinson. They did make 2 deadline day panic buy signings which were good in Mertesacker and Arteta. Those are 2 players who feature in a video I did where I looked at 10 of the best panic buys. Make sure to check that out if you haven't done so already. I'll put a link in the description for you. Anyway, they also bought Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, who did decent, but still. I think the thing that makes this such a bad window is Arsenal, when they, could have pushed on and tried to mount a title challenge, instead ended up making a profit that summer and didn't buy anybody of note despite selling some of their best players. And this resulted in yet another mediocre, for Arsenal standards, campaign finishing 3rd place. Number 4, Leicester 2016 summer window. So just 1 year after they had won the league, Leicester had one of their worst ever transfer windows. Firstly, they lost N'Golo Kanté to Chelsea for £32 million, which is annoying and bad, but was inevitable. To be fair, they did manage to hold on to Vardy and Mahrez, which was one of the only positives of this summer. So, with their Kanté money, and as Premier League champions, what did they do in the window? Well, they proceeded to spend a combined total of 57 million on Islam Slimani, Namplas Mendy and Ahmed Musa. In fact, they spent 87% of the Kanté money on Islam Slimani, who went on to score them 8 goals before being shipped on a bunch of loans and eventually leaving. That summer they spent a total of over £80 million on a bunch of nobodies such as Luis Hernandez, Ron Robert Zila, Kaputska. The only one of their 9 signings that summer who actually did something was Wilfred Ndidi. Apart from that, it was an absolute disaster, especially considering they had just won the league. Number 5, Sunderland, summer window of 2016. Now, to be honest, I could have included about 6 Sunderland windows here, but I've chosen this one as it was the one that ultimately led to their disaster. Sunderland spent a total of 37 million, which at the time was very big money for them, and they didn't get a single player who actually gave them a return on their investment. So here's what they got for 37 million. Didier Ndong for 15 million, who they would get into legal trouble with after relegation in regards to his wages. Papi Dijaboju from Chelsea, who had the same issue and got into legal trouble. Paddy McNair, who did nothing and they sold for basically as much as they bought him for. Mika, who you've never heard of, which is kind of saying it all. Donald Love, who you've never heard of, which kind of saying it all. Stephen Pienaar at the age of 34, so as you can imagine, did nothing. Victor Anichebe, who scored basically 0 goals. And then Adnan Januzaj and Manquillo on loans, who yet again did absolutely nothing. And to top this off, thanks to this absolutely shambolic window, they ended up getting relegated this year and have not returned to the Premier League since, spending time in League One. Oh yeah, and this also caused huge financial problems for them, which they've only now really got rid of. So yeah, pretty bad window. Number 6, Everton summer window of 2017. So imagine this, you've just sold your star striker for 70 million, a huge fee in 2017. What would you do with all that money? Well, if you were looking for advice, do not ask whoever spent the money in 2017 at the Everton board, because they absolutely splunked it on some dross. Everton sold Romelu Lukaku for 70 million and went on to spend all the money and some more on Gylfi Sigurdsson, who the less said about him both on and off the pitch the better, Michael Keane, Jordan Pickford, Sandro Ramirez, Cuco Martina, Wayne Rooney, Nikola Vlasic and Davy Klaassen. And I know some of those names you're probably thinking, who is that? i.e. Cuco Martina, but that's the point. Well, Pickford hasn't been too bad, and Michael Keane has had some okay moments. Davy Klaassen did nothing for Everton, Sandro Ramirez the same, Vlasic the same, and Wayne Rooney did not justify his enormous wages. I think the fact that they ended this season with Big Sam in charge kinda tells you all you need to know about how bad this window was, as it literally sent them into a relegation scrap and caused huge future financial fair play problems. Number 7, Liverpool 2014 summer window. After being a Steven Gerrard slip away from the league title, Liverpool went into the 2014 window knowing they were not too far from a title. So what did they do in order to give them that final push? Well, they decided to sell their star man, Luis Suarez, to Barcelona. Although I will cut them some slack, as it was kind of inevitable he was going to leave. But they got some good money, and in order to replace this output, they decided to go and get Alberto Moreno, Adam Lallana, Ricky Lambert, Divock Origi, Lazar Markovic and Mario Balotelli. It should come as no surprise to you that the following season Liverpool absolutely collapsed and were miles off a title push. The only player who did anything of note out of those signings was Origi, but that was like 4 years later and in a couple games in the Champions League. It's hardly like he became a 30-goal a season striker for them. So yeah, spending all that Luis Suarez money and getting Divock Origi as your best player kinda says it all. Number 8, Man City 2012. So Liverpool had an awful window after just missing out on the title, but Man City had a arguably worse window after winning the title. So imagine this, your club has just won the league and these are the players they signed. 20 million on Jack Rodwell and Scott Sinclair, a washed-up Maicon from Inter Milan, Javi Garcia for 16 million, yeah, I've never heard of him either, Matai Nastasic for 30 million, oh yeah, and Richard Wright. Yeah, hardly business of champions from Man City there. Literally nobody they signed that summer did anything good, or was even a little bit of a success for the club. The only success of that window was they managed to sell Adam Johnson, who, yeah, we all know about him. Number 9, QPR 2012. Another 2012 summer window of shambles, and this one is pretty famous. The QPR team, which, if they had all been in their prime, would have been competing for league titles, but instead ended up getting relegated and sending the club into debt. The window saw QPR buy Esteban Granero, Stefan Mbia, Jason Park, Julio Cesar, Jose Boswinga, Andy Johnson, Fabio, Rob Green, Julia Hollett and Samba Diakate. And the wages of these players was insane. This season QPR got relegated, and to add to this, they had a higher wage bill than the Champions League finalists that year, Atletico Madrid, and the 7th highest wage bill in the Premier League. The spending meant the side made a £65 million loss and had £177 million net debt. All that money spent just for the best player out of all of those to be Junior Hoilett. Crazy stuff. Lastly, Fulham 2018. Yet another club frantically splashing for cash to stay in the Prem and it backfiring horribly. Fulham, after gaining promotion, spent a lot of money, and most of it was rubbish. Their marquee signing was Jean-Michel Seri, who had been linked to the likes of Chelsea, but Fulham came in with a massive 25 million bid and huge wages. And well, Seri is currently playing at Hull City, so that kind of tells you all you need to know about how that worked. They spent 22 million on Sambo and Gisa, which wasn't bad, although he didn't really save them and they didn't really get a profit. They spent 20 million on Alfie Mawson from Swansea, who is retired at the age of 29, Maxime Le Marchand, who you've never heard of, Fabry, who you've never heard of, and then a bunch of loans on huge wages, such as Andre Schürrle, Luciano Vietti, Callum Chambers. Overall, they spent over 100 million just to get relegated. I will give them credit for one signing, Alexander Mitrovic, who is bagging goals, but one good signing out of 12 is not a good ratio. So there we go. Those are 10 of the worst transfer windows of all time. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and if you have enjoyed, please leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in another video. Peace.